Anthony Albanese has absolutely cooked it, and I'm not saying that for clicks. I'm saying that because every single corner of this country feels like it's sliding into the bin fire he lit himself. While Aussies are drowning in bills, our Prime Minister is off playing nice with dictators, throwing our money at climate conferences, and pretending everything's sweet. But it's not. It's bloody chaos. And guess what? No one in Canberra's got the guts to say it. So I will. Before we dive back into the Albanese disaster, where Albo's grinning on the world stage while Aussies can't afford rent, dodging real issues like their potholes in a Labour-run suburb, slap that like button like it just hiked your power bill and blamed climate change. Subscribe if you're done watching the country get auctioned off to global elites. And grab the Make Politics Honest Again shirt. Wear it while you still can speak your mind. Links in the description. Under Anthony Albanese, we've just clocked the steepest drop in productivity in Australia's history. Let that sink in. We're not talking about a small dip. We're talking about a nosedive off a cliff, blindfolded, holding a petrol can. More than 5% gone. Smashed. Obliterated. That's not just an economic stat. That's your mortgage, your groceries, your small business, all suffering because the bloke running the show thinks posting selfies in China is more important than fixing the bloody economy. And they wonder why no one trusts politicians. And while we're at it, how the hell is the average Aussie expected to cough up an extra $12,000 a year on mortgage repayments? That's not tough times. That's financial suffocation. Albanese can gaslight all he wants with his spin doctors and fancy presses, but the truth's leaking out faster than our savings. This isn't leadership, this is economic vandalism with a smug grin on top. But it gets worse. It always does with this mob. Albanese didn't just oversee a productivity crash, he ignored it. While Rome burned, he was gallivanting overseas, throwing our tax dollars at UN climate talk fests where nothing ever gets done. 75 bureaucrats flew to Azerbaijan. 75. On our dime. 20 grand a head. That's more than a luxury honeymoon for a 3-day chinwag that accomplished zip. Seriously, you could have paved roads or paid nurses with that cash. But no, we got $1 million pavilion and some corporate-style climate chatter. Hope you're feeling represented. And just when you think he couldn't be more out of touch, Anthony Albanese wants to host the next climate conference here. That's right, the same bloke who said we couldn't afford to lower taxes wants to throw a $500 million party for global elites to sip lattes and lecture us about emissions. How's that for priorities? While you're choosing between fuel or food, he's booking conference centers and printing glossy brochures. This isn't just tone deaf, it's borderline obscene. But here's the kicker, Albanese loves to act like he's a champion of the battler. Always flashing that awkward grin, always tossing around words like fairness and equity. Mate, give it a rest. What's fair about ignoring working families while handing blank checks to bureaucrats and climate zealots? What's equitable about spending more on your image than on actual policy that helps the average punter? It's all smoke and mirrors, and we're the ones choking on it. And don't even start me on the China trip. 4 meetings with the Chinese Communist Party. None with the United States. Not even a symbolic handshake. Albanese is rolling out the red carpet for a regime that spies on us, bullies our neighbors, and is militarizing the Pacific, and he's doing it with a smile. Meanwhile, our oldest ally gets ghosted. You can't make this stuff up. He's cozying up to Beijing while flipping the bird to Washington. That's not diplomacy. That's betrayal. Now look, I'm not saying we shouldn't have dialogue with China. But there's dialogue, and then there's rolling over. Albanese has turned Australia into the polite kid in the playground handing over his lunch money to the school bully. And what do we get in return? Trade punishments, hacking attempts, and military drills under civilian flight paths near our coast. That's not a friendship, that's coercion. But Albanese? Nah, he's too busy sipping tea and chasing photo ops to care. Let's not forget, this is the same Prime Minister who couldn't give a straight answer on GST, danced around questions about taxes, and now suddenly wants to call a productivity roundtable as if it's some new idea. Mate, you ignored the Productivity Commission at your last Jobs and Skills Summit. Now you want to play catch-up because the house is on fire? You don't get points for showing up late with a squirt gun. And let's really talk about those taxes. Because here's the quiet part nobody in Labour wants to say out loud. Albanese's roundtable isn't about boosting productivity. It's about jacking up taxes to cover the gaping hole they blew in the budget. It's about squeezing every last dollar from the same Australians they promised to help. All smoke, no fire, unless it's under your wallet. You'd think after a productivity drop like this, the government would come out swinging with reforms, something bold, something visionary. But nope. Albanese is busy blaming Donald Trump. Dead set. As if Trump's tariffs are the reason our economy's in the gutter. It's a lazy scapegoat for a government that's run out of ideas. Don't look west, Albo. Look in the mirror. Let's not pretend this is all accidental either. Anthony Albanese didn't stumble into this mess, he created it. Deliberately. Whether it's strangling businesses with red tape, dumping cash into feel-good projects that achieve nothing, or treating hard-working Aussies like piggy banks, it's all part of the plan. It's not about growth, it's about control. And if you think that's extreme, just wait. We're already being softened up for the next hit. Albanese wants to transform Australia's energy sector, not with realistic targets or transitional support, but with sweeping, ideological overhauls that'll cost billions and crush industries. They'll call it green reform. You'll feel it as job losses, blackouts, and energy bills that make your jaw drop. We're on the brink of turning off the lights, literally, while Albo cheers from the sidelines. And where are the media in all this? Cozying up, parroting press releases, treating Albanese like some wise statesman rather than the out-of-his-depth party man he really is. Where's the scrutiny? Where's the accountability? It's all smoke and stagecraft. And anyone who dares question it gets labeled a climate denier, a conspiracy theorist, or worse. That's not democracy. That's censorship dressed up as civility. We were told Albanese would bring stability. What we got was chaos. We were promised compassion. What we got was elitism with a smile. And we were told Labor would fight for the workers. Instead, they sold us out for corporate climate credentials and global approval. This isn't the Australia I grew up in. It's some sanitized, scripted version where the battlers get shafted and the bureaucrats get bonuses. You know what's really cooked? While Albanese is holding hands with Xi Jinping, pretending to be a global statesman, our regional towns are collapsing. Farmers are drowning in regulation, tradies are giving up, small businesses are bleeding out. Try opening a pub or running a cattle farm in this climate. You'll drown in paperwork before you pour a pint. But hey, at least our politicians are flying business class to Azerbaijan to fight climate change, right? And here's a question for the so-called moderates in Albanese's cabinet. Where the hell are you? Where's the spine? Where's the pushback? Or are you all just happy to go along for the ride, hoping to land a comfy UN gig when it's over? Because from where I'm sitting, not one of you is standing up for the Aussie battler. You've all been seduced by the Canberra bubble, and the rest of us? We're just trying to survive the fallout. I want you to really think about that next time you hear Anthony Albanese talk about equity or sustainability. What he means is higher costs, lower freedoms, and more power concentrated in the hands of the same people who never pay the price for their own disasters. We pay. Every single time. We are not in a transition. We are in a takedown of our economy, our freedoms, and our future. And Albanese is driving the bloody bulldozer. So if you've had enough of being gaslit, ignored, and taxed to death while your PM poses for cameras overseas, then stay right here. Because we're not done. Not even close. Anthony Albanese hasn't just failed at governing, he's actively dismantling the idea of Australia we all grew up with. He's not just some clueless career politician bumbling through policy briefings. No mate, he's a PR-obsessed puppet doing the bidding of a disconnected elite while pretending to be one of us, but he's not. Never was. Never will be. Take a look around, everything's getting worse. Roads are falling apart. Hospitals are on their knees. Cops are stretched thin. But Albanese's biggest concern? Hosting climate summits and smiling for overseas media. It's a bloody joke. How do you justify $500 million for a conference when pensioners are rationing heating in the middle of winter? What kind of leadership is that? And don't fall for the but it's all global pressure excuse. That's the line they trot out every time they run out of answers. Global inflation. Global supply chains. Global climate crisis. It's always someone else's fault. But here's the truth, we're worse off than other countries right now because of decisions made right here at home by Anthony Albanese and his crew of bureaucratic backpatters. This government is obsessed with image and allergic to results. Albanese's entire policy agenda is like a house built on sand. He promises stability, but delivers confusion. He says he's strengthening the economy, but our national productivity is in free fall. And the worst part? He pretends like it's fine, like we won't notice, like we're all just too dumb to understand the game he's playing. But we see it. Every day. In the price of lettuce, in the cost of rent, in the empty shelves, in the broken infrastructure, and in the tightening noose of bureaucracy. What used to be common sense Aussie living is now tangled in red tape, carbon credits, and a government that's more interested in looking progressive than actually doing anything to help the country. And let's not ignore the cultural creep. Albanese's government has slowly but surely started chipping away at things we took for granted, like free speech. It started with fact-checkers and social media guidelines. Now they're going after independent voices, podcasters, and even comedians who dare criticize the status quo. It's all fun and games until your opinion becomes illegal. And that's exactly where we're headed under this soft-handed, big government, hypersensitive leadership. You think this is just about economics? It's not. It's about control. This is about shaping the country into a sanitized, soulless, government-approved playground where only the right people with the right views are allowed to speak, live, and earn. And Albanese? He's not resisting it, he's cheering it on. He wants more regulation, more oversight, more surveillance. Because deep down, Albanese doesn't trust Australians to think for themselves. Let's talk about the voice referendum. The biggest political embarrassment in recent memory. Hundreds of millions of dollars were poured into a divisive campaign that didn't solve a single real problem. Indigenous communities are still suffering. Remote towns are still being ignored. But Albanese would rather spend taxpayer money on symbolism than real-world solutions. It was never about helping, it was about virtue signaling on the global stage. And when it failed? Did Albanese admit he got it wrong? Did he listen? Did he apologize for wasting our money and time? Nope. He just pivoted, like he always does, onto the next distraction. Because accountability's a foreign concept to this bloke. He talks about unity while sowing division. He talks about progress while dragging the country backwards. And somehow, the media still treat him like he's a genius. Well, let me tell you something, Albo. We're not buying it anymore. You've got tradies quitting in record numbers. Nurses and teachers burning out. Farmers being buried in green tape. Small business owners drowning in compliance. Meanwhile, corporate giants get sweetheart deals and bureaucrats score endless perks. The real Australia is being gutted, and all we get from Canberra is spin, slogans, and a fresh round of taxes. You want to talk about fairness? Here's fairness. How about the people who actually build this country, the brickies, the truckies, the spockies, the fireys? How about they get a break for once? How about they don't get punished for working hard? Because under this government, the harder you work, the more they take. Albanese has turned ambition into a liability. And that's not just bad policy, it's a bloody disgrace. And don't think the next election's going to save us. Because Albanese is already laying the groundwork to lock in power for as long as he can. Watch him closely. You'll see the quiet legislation changes, the stacking of committees, the silencing of opposition, the billions in infrastructure funding being funneled into safe Labour seats. It's the oldest trick in the book: buy loyalty, bury scrutiny, and pretend you're saving the nation. And for what? So he can hand over Australia to unelected globalists under the banner of sustainability and equity? So he can host more flashy conferences while rural Australia rots from neglect? There's nothing sustainable about what Albanese is doing. It's a sprint towards collapse wrapped in a rainbow flag and solar panels. You think he's done? Not even close. His next move? A total overhaul of the energy grid, phasing out reliable power in favor of intermittent solutions that barely work when it's cloudy. He wants to shut down coal while pretending like our solar panels don't come from Chinese slave labor. He wants to lecture us about emissions while flying private jets to shake hands with despots. It's the peak of hypocrisy, and it's being done in your name. And here's the insult to injury: While your power bill triples and the lights flicker off, Anthony Albanese will be sitting comfortably in a taxpayer-funded mansion with diesel generators as backup. He won't feel the pain. You will. That's how this game works. The truth is, Albanese isn't leading a country, he's managing a decline. And the worst part? He knows it. He just doesn't care. As long as the press is kind, the speeches are polished, and the consultants keep their jobs, he's happy. This isn't about serving the people. It's about maintaining the illusion of leadership while everything underneath it collapses. And let's not forget immigration. Albanese has quietly ramped up intake numbers to the point where cities are bursting at the seams. Infrastructure can't keep up. Schools are overcrowded. Emergency rooms are jammed. Rents are through the roof. But instead of facing facts, they label any concern as xenophobia. That's their tactic. Guilt you into silence. Shame you for noticing. Meanwhile, developers and donors laugh all the way to the bank. This government doesn't believe in Australia. Not the real one. They believe in a version of Australia that exists in think tanks and university lecture halls. One where identity politics trumps hard work, where bureaucracy crushes innovation, and where global approval matters more than local survival. We used to be proud to stand on our own 2 feet. We used to value grit, guts, and common sense. But under Albanese, we're becoming a nation of boxes to be ticked, reports to be filed, and stakeholders to be consulted. No wonder we're slipping. And here's the final insult. Anthony Albanese still dares to call this mess a success. He says he's proud of what he's built. Proud. Proud of collapsing productivity. Proud of the cost of living crisis. Proud of silencing dissent. Proud of backing China over our allies. Proud of overseeing a nation that's never been more divided, more broken, more fed up. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can keep swallowing the spin, keep nodding along while the country we love is slowly dismantled. Or we can wake up. We can start asking harder questions. We can hold every politician, especially Albanese, to account. We can demand transparency, honesty, and actual bloody results. Because this isn't just about policy anymore. It's about identity. It's about sovereignty. It's about saving the Australia we grew up in from becoming just another failed experiment in globalist idealism. You're not crazy for being angry. You're not alone for feeling betrayed. You're not wrong for saying, this isn't working. You're paying the price for their failure, and they want you to smile while doing it. Well, I say enough's enough. Anthony Albanese's government has proven that it's more interested in image than action, more committed to foreign approval than local prosperity, and more willing to rewrite reality than to fix anything. So no, mate, we're not clapping. We're not falling in line. We're not letting this slide. We're calling it out, loudly, relentlessly, and unapologetically. Because if we don't, if we stay silent, then this mess becomes permanent. And we owe it to every Aussie, past and future, to fight back. So here's the final message. To Anthony Albanese, enjoy your photo ops. Enjoy your overseas trips. Enjoy your spin sessions with the press. But know this. We're watching. We're remembering. And we're not falling for it anymore. This country doesn't belong to the elites in Canberra. It belongs to us. And we're taking it back. See you in the next one, and don't forget to slap that like button like it just tripled your power bill and told you it was for net zero. Oi, and if you're properly fed up, grab the Make Politics. Honest again, wear it to the next town hall, the next rent inspection, or just down to the servo when you're coughing up half your pay for fuel while elbows are off shaking hands overseas. Stay loud, stay sharp, and never stop fighting for the Australia they're trying to take from us.